All right, that Arkansas football team was a handful down the stretch in the SEC in 2014. Could they break through and contend for a Western Division championship this year? We bring in Trey Schaap of 103.7 The Buzz down there in Little Rock, Arkansas. Hey, Trey, how are you?
Good, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. I'm excited to talk about this Arkansas football team because we slugged it out for a couple of years, having you on, talking about loss after loss after loss in the SEC, and we knew it was going to break through, and once it did, boy, Ole Miss and LSU sure found out what Arkansas had planned for them and what they were capable of, and they looked really good in the bowl game. I thought that was one of the more generous odds on the lineup in looking at the bowl spreads with Arkansas, only like a 3-point favorite. So a lot of people ran with that one. They dominated that game. So let's set us up for the spring. Let's start at quarterback. Brandon Allen 2 years ago had a difficult time struggling in the SEC, hurt shoulder, really never was able to establish himself. Then he was healthy and really performed well last spring. But what the question is with Allen in place is who's going to vie for that backup role?
No question. The job is definitely Brandon Allen's at the beginning of the season. And hopefully if he can stay healthy, a fifth-year player, he's been through the SEC wars. He knows what to expect, specifically on the road and in conference games. But Austin Allen, Rafe Peavey, and Ty Story, the three other quarterbacks back there with Dan Enos, the offensive coordinator, the new offensive coordinator for the Arkansas Razorbacks, who comes from Central Michigan, replacing Jim Chaney. I think it will be interesting to see who gets that backup job. If I were to guess right now, it's probably going to be Rafe Peavey because, Mark, when you look back to the game against Missouri when Brandon Allen struggled with his back, had a horrible time trying to throw the football. That's a game Arkansas could have won as well, but they didn't. Missouri able to win it down the stretch. But I think if Austin Allen, if the coaches would have felt comfortable enough in him, they would have put him in the game. And he never got in the game, except for when Brandon had to come out for like 2 plays, and then Brandon's right back in. And the whole game, they kept asking Brandon after series, how do you feel? Well, he said, I'm fine. I want to keep playing, even though balls were sailing and he was missing receivers. And a lot of the fans thought that they should have given Austin Allen a shot. They didn't. And Rafe Peavey was redshirted last year. Ty Story, who is already on campus, he'll be a freshman next year. He enrolled back in January, but after he finished his high school and Arkansas got to the winter break, he was able to even practice with the team before they left to go down to Houston. You were talking about that Texas Bowl with the Longhorns, and so he knows what's going on. He's a multiple state championship winner in the state of Arkansas, Gatorade Player of the Year last year. And I think he can vie for it, but I think that they would like to redshirt him, and it would be between Rafe Peavey and Austin Allen. If it were up to me, which it's not, I think it would be Rafe Peavey.
Okay. Again, Brandon Allen, 16 touchdowns, 5 picks after a difficult time in 2013, and he's established. Hopefully, they don't have to go to the backup, but you always have to have that guy in place who goes from being a foregone conclusion to suddenly the most important guy on the roster with 1 play and 1 injury. And, of course, the better teams have that guy in place ready to carry the football team for a couple weeks if the starter goes down. Alex Collins, Jonathan Williams, 2 of the best in the SEC, 2 of the best in the country. It seems like we've been talking about them for a long, long time. Back-to-back, practically 1,000-yard seasons back-to-back for both as a tandem. They're a given. Let's go to the perimeter, Trey, and let's talk about wide receiver and what the Hogs can do in trying to balance out the attack. It's always going to be run first, but they obviously, in taking that next step, need to find a little bit more playmaking ability on the periphery.
No, you're right, and that's something that they did not have last year. They didn't have a threat down the field, and some think that it could be Keon Hatcher this year or a JoJo Robinson, who did not play last year, used a redshirt year last year. JoJo's a guy that has the speed. Can he come in? He's a bigger receiver. Can he come in and be that go-to guy? Right now I've heard that Keon Hatcher is having a great spring on the hill, and he's a guy that could be the go-to receiver. Brandon Allen threw to him several times last year, and the ball just went right through his hands at times, and it was like, what are you doing? But then in the Texas Bowl, he made some great catches, caught a ball that Brandon Allen overthrew, but he goes up and is able to haul it in. So I think Keon Hatcher is a guy to look for at the wide receiver position to step up for Arkansas. And you've got the great tight end in Hunter Henry. You've also got Jeremy Sprinkle out there, and you've got a true freshman that's going to be at tight end, Will Gregg, if they don't redshirt him. He's also already on campus, just like Ty Story. So Bret Bielema's got several freshmen that are already enrolled, early enrollees that are able to go through this spring practice, get those 15 practices in before they reach the summer, and then off-season workouts and fall camp comes up in August.
Trey Schaap joins us from 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock, Arkansas, covering Arkansas football. And, of course, the Hogs excited to get back on the field after that great finish to 2014. And we will see them in the spring game on the SEC Network Plus on April 25th. All right, Trey, let's flip to the defense. Wow, the defense was exceptional last year. Once they get past the Auburn game in the opener, really Georgia was the only team that made some dents on this defense. Otherwise, man, Alabama, prolific on offense, only scores 14 points. The famed back-to-back shutouts against top 10 teams in Ole Miss and LSU. Darius Philon gone to the NFL along with Trey Flowers. Those are the two missing linchpins from that great defensive effort. Your thoughts about what the defense needs to do to make up for those losses?
Well, first of all, the game against Georgia, Mark, let's not put it all on the defense because there was some bad field position. There was a fumble by Brandon Allen that they returned. So let's don't put it all on the defense. I mean, the defense, yes, they were good, solid, and they did lose the Georgia game. There's no question about that. But they did come on. They were able to shut out Ole Miss and LSU in back-to-back games, something that no one saw coming in the SEC. People were wondering, when would they win an SEC game? Well, they did it in dramatic fashion. They won 2 in a row and all by shutouts. And Bret Bielema was building a foundation at Arkansas. He started with the offensive and defensive lines. And a guy like Darius Philon in the middle to just plug the gap was – and that's going to be a huge loss for them. But they've also got to find someone to replace Trey Flowers as well, and Martrell Speight at linebacker. Martrell Speight was the leading tackler in the SEC last year. I believe they're going to move Brooks Ellis to his position this year. Brooks Ellis played beside him last year. And that's a position right there that could be interesting as linebacker play. And they've been a little weak at corner and safety, but I think they've kind of got that shored up a little bit this year. But if they can get a guy like a Deatrich Wise, a Bijan Jackson on that defensive front line, which is where Bret Bielema wants to build his defense, start with, I think that gives Rob Smith a great foundation to start defensively. And give credit to Rob Smith as well. He came in last year replacing Chris Ash, who went to Ohio State, was their co-defensive coordinator last year. Rob Smith comes in, and Mark, you're right, turned the defense around.
Hey, Trey, before we let you go, Razorback Nation has to be just pumped about the situation coming off of 7-6 and how you arrived at the 7-6, playing a brutal schedule. I think it could stack up with anybody in the country, and being able to get the back-to-back shutouts, play Alabama as tough as you did, break through in the SEC, really dominate Texas in the bowl game when that was supposed to be a toss-up game. The Razorback Nation has to be pumped for this season. Can you give us any kind of feel for the expectancy of this football season?
Well, a lot of fans are really expecting great things from this Razorback football team. And in fact, today on our show, we had a guy on from Vegas, the Gold Sheep, Bruce Marshall, and he thinks that Arkansas could be a dark horse in the SEC West this year. And Marcus Spears on the SEC Network said, look, Arkansas could be a team that could get in the college football playoff this year. So there are those people out there that do think highly of the Razorbacks. You look at how they started last year. Yes, they lost to Auburn, but they were in that game for the first half. And then after halftime is when it started getting away from them. But they kept believing in what Bret Bielema was teaching. They played Alabama close, 14-13. But he was able to take the tape back and say, look, if Cody Walker doesn't fumble the ball on a sure touchdown catch, they win that football game. If we don't have a bad snap on a field goal attempt, they win that football game. That would have been his first SEC win against the Alabama Crimson Tide. It didn't happen, but there were mistakes that they could teach from each week. Even the A&M loss. You had Dan Skipper, one of the biggest offensive linemen in college football at 6'10", 300 and who knows how many, 15, 20, 30 pounds, who had 2 holding calls that negated 99 yards of offense in that game. And if you don't have those type of plays, then Arkansas beats Texas A&M and Dallas last year. They probably beat Alabama, and it could have been a much different season than just 7-6. But the way it ended, winning, going out on a high note by destroying Texas. And I'm not talking about just beating Texas, Mark, destroying Texas. Razorback fans love that. Texas should not have even scored in that game. They got a gift on a pooch kick that I don't know why it went that way on a kickoff by Sam Irwin-Hill. Texas gets a great return, and then they're able to score a couple of plays later, albeit swoops. There might have been a hold on the outside that was not called. But nonetheless, they dominated Texas in that game. When's the last time that Texas had 2 yards of rushing in a football game?
I got to tell you, Trey, I was excited to see that football game just from the standpoint of the tradition, the old Southwest Conference rivalry, but I was shocked. I could not wait to see the Razorbacks take the field because that 3-point spread I thought was a joke. It did not surprise me that Arkansas dominated that football game because they had been playing so well against top-level competition where Texas basically beat up on a bunch of nothing. And anytime they played anyone of that ilk, they got their lunch handed to them, and we saw it again in the Texas Bowl. So, Trey, good stuff there. We appreciate the time. And it looks like you want to jump in on one other thing here.
Yeah, I knew that Bret Bielema was pleased with the preparation leading up to the Texas Bowl when it was raining in Houston and they had to move a practice indoors to a high school gymnasium. It didn't faze him at all. They put all their work in before they left the day after Christmas to head down to Houston. So he felt pretty confident going into that football game, and you could see it, not just in him, but in the entire team. I wasn't surprised one bit of how they came out and played. I was more shocked at the way Texas was not ready for the game.
Well, Trey, it's going to be fun to watch and to see a program go from 10 wins in the Sugar Bowl in 2010 to the depths of the situation with Bobby Petrino and all the turmoil, and then Bret Bielema has to turn over the roster and to be able to make the strides that they did in the second half when we saw it coming in the 3-9 season and early in 2014, and then they break through and wow, they really play some awesome football down the stretch. It's going to be interesting again to see where it takes off from here. We got Trey Schaap with 103.7 The Buzz. Hey, Trey, you're welcome anytime, of course, so we appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Thanks.